You're watching Fanboy Versus with your hosts, JD Church, Nicole Hale, Chris Triplett, and Chris McFeely.
And you are watching Fanboy Versus. I am your host, JD, joined once again by the amazing Chris Triplett, Nicole Hale, and Chris McFeely. Welcome, trio.
Hello.
Trio.
Right.
My trio of comic book experts.
We're JD's trifecta.
Yes.
Yes. Hot trick.
So I'm very excited this week because I actually have a comic book t-shirt on. First time I've actually got to wear one on the show because I got some for Christmas. Yeah, I know. I've had some Transformers ones, but not comic book ones.
Transformers are comics.
They are. That's what I hear.
No. There is a Transformers comic.
We'll explore that theory later in the show.
Yes, so that will be coming as well. So, it is Fanboy versus The Replacements, as we will talk about some news coming out of DC this week, as well as lots of other news, so we should probably...
oh, you're talking about comics. For a minute, I thought you were turning this into a football podcast.
No. Hey, so Triple, are you much of a Tar Heels fan?
No.
That's good for
No,
you then,
that
isn't it? As North Carolina was mercilessly beaten yesterday, but
I heard about that today. I didn't watch it. So
Brian, I think, is in mourning still. I think he's still in a bit of shock.
No, I'm still learning from last Sunday.
So.
I had to talk him off the ledge at lunch today, so yeah, I know all about it.
Yep. Anyway, so comic stuff. Chris McFeely, news. What's up?
Well, let's have a look, shall we?
Yes.
There's a lot of stuff happened this week, but I guess the unavoidably largest announcement is that coming in, I believe it is the month of May, DC will be launching six new titles. Now, those new titles are Grant Morrison's Batman Incorporated. Hooray! Originally announced that it was going to be coming back as a 12-issue series called Batman Leviathan, but they've announced this as an ongoing, but I still wouldn't be surprised if it only lasts 12 issues, and they're just not publicizing that fact. Morrison says he has the end in sight for it anyway, and it's going to have art by Chris Burnham, and he's probably got a little jump on it if he's going to be able to provide it for every issue ongoing. So that is the one everyone's been waiting for. Other new arrivals are, rather interestingly, Earth 2, which is the long teased. Yeah, they've been talking about this one for a while. Justice Society series by James Robinson and Nicola Scott. James Robinson always does his best stuff when he does the Justice Society and plays in that world. He's doing the Shade right now. I'm curious. Can't go wrong with Nicola Scott. It's Nicola Scott of Secret Six.
I'll buy the first issue. That's a fact.
Yeah.
Just to see, because I love the
Give it a look. It's going to have a companion book in the form of World's Finest, which is going to star Huntress and Power Girl. The announcement that Paul Levitz is writing does not do anything for me. He was Huntress's creator. But the fact that the art is going to be by the rotating pair of Kevin Maguire and George Perez.
Oh my God!
Damn, son, that is a pedigree.
Yeah. What
is going on there that they've put this team on that book? You know, that's a book to look at.
Yeah.
There's going to be G.I. Combat, which is the new war book. We'll be talking about why it's new in a second.
Because we gotta have it.
Well, that's
So
but
where are you saying? Are you saying that the
Oh,
new
we're not there yet. We're not there yet.
Oh, no. Wait.
We're not there yet. Currently, the thing about Men at War is that it's a modern war book exploring the ramifications and realities of trying to wage war in a world where superhumans exist. That's the hook of Men at War. Doesn't seem to... Ivan Brandon just wrapped up on it, and I think that the issues 7 and 8, 6 and 7, whatever, are going to be done by somebody else. So whatever the story he was trying to tell, he's finished with. So G.I. Combat here is actually about revisiting DC's classic war properties, including The War That Time Forgot, which is the story of the soldiers on Dinosaur Island, which you'll know if you saw or read New Frontier. That's going to be by J.T. Krull and Ariel Olivetti. They just won't stop. letting him write things. And far, yeah, well, Jesus, I mean, he's terrible, but and far more interesting sounding rotating backups, including The Unknown Soldier by Gray and Palmiotti and The Haunted Tank by John Arcudi and Scott Collins.
Haunted Tank.
Yeah, and presumably there'll be room for more war stories like The Loners or whatever to crop up as well. If the backups they're going to rotate like that.
I don't need any more books, but I would buy a Haunted Tank book.
Books. One of the major ones is Dial H, which is a new take on Dial H for Hero, one of the very campy 1970s anthology series about kids who find a dial, and whenever they dial HERO, and like a telephone dial, when they dial HERO, a rotary dial, kids, remember those?
What?
What? And it was fixed into the wall. The idea was when you dialed HERO, they would be transformed into any.
It was like a different hero
superhuman.
each time, wasn't it? Like a
Yeah,
different.
hell, it was
hero.
there were times it could be a different hero each page.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the readers would send in suggestions and design heroes and things that could be used in the stories. It was a very 70s concept, but seems it's being done by. Hang on, let me look up the name of the person because it was China Mayville, who I don't know, but who I know was going to write Swamp Thing before the New 52 happened, and they went in a different direction with it.
Huh.
And it seems who's doing the art on this one? Did he have an artist announcement? The cover's by Brian Bolland. Art by Mateus Santaluco, who I have to admit I don't know. But the author is known for weird fiction, and it seems like this is going to join like Swamp Thing and Animal Man as a Vertigo book by any other name. And this is the one of the 6 that definitely has my attention. I'm quite interested to see what happens with this one. I may well pick this one up. And then the 6th one is The Ravagers, a teen team book. We heard a while back there was some rumble that Gail Simone was going to do something with a teen team book. So whenever we first heard about this, shortly before the official announcement, people were thinking it might be her. But no, this is something spinning out of Superboy and Teen Titans, featuring teen superheroes on the run from an evil government organization. Well, maybe not the government, I don't know. And it's going to be written by Howard Mackey. Putting paid, I believe, to the theory that Bob Harris is just using his 1990s Marvel Rolodex to staff the New 52 creative teams. Because Howard Mackey has not done anything in a long time, and he hasn't done anything good in a lot longer than that. Like, he did Ghost Rider back in the 90s, so I'm sure Triplet can sing his praises
I
as far as
love
that
Ghost
goes.
Rider. My Dan Ketch Ghost Rider. Don't talk nothing bad about my Dan Ketch Ghost Rider.
I'm talking bad about your Dan Ketch Ghost Rider.
I'll bust a cap in you if you talk nothing bad about it.
Shut up, baby, I know it. But Mackey is not, what would typically be termed, as the Indians used to call it, good. And he was responsible he was one of the driving forces behind the Clone Saga. He did a terrible post-Chapter 1 reboot of Spider-Man with John Byrne.
Oh, God,
And he was doing Spider-Man in between the Clone Saga and that. He did Spider-Man for nearly, God, I don't know how long it was. It was more than half it, years and years in a row. And that was bad. So it's like, you look, it's like, what are you doing hiring Howard Mackey? Completing the 90s effect, it's being drawn by Ian Churchill, but Ian Churchill has changed his style massively recently. He did some very Ed McGuinness-y stuff on the Hulk, and he's done his own series Marine Man for Image recently. So it's gonna look pretty, even if it's going to read despicably.
Just ignore the dialogue and flip through, right?
Anyway, so 6 new titles, but that means that, it's not going to become the New 58. We are losing
I was hoping.
6
Man,
titles.
No, we must keep the forces in balance. So,
Yeah. So we're losing 6, and we are losing Men of War, being replaced by GI Combat, Mr. Terrific, OMAC, Hawk and Dove, Blackhawks, and Static Shock. Not a one of which I'm surprised to see on this list.
I don't know
if you were to point...
I was shocked when I heard that Hawk and Dove was getting canceled. I mean, it was just...
Oh, don't worry though, don't worry, because Rob Liefeld is going to be writing and drawing Deathstroke, and he's going to start plotting. I know, hooray! Don't worry.
We don't want him to be out of a job.
I mean it's like obviously they're not going to cancel Deathstroke. Why would they do that?
I was honestly surprised when they announced that Hawk and Dove was going to be part of the new 52. I'm like, really?
Well,
do they have much fan support? Because I picked it up and I was bored with the first issue.
Well,
I mean,
now you can pick up Deathstroke.
I've just looked in the chat there, and Grufflock is blowing his wad over the news that China Manville is going to be writing Dial H. So there we go. Somebody knew who it was. He should be on this show. Not that I'm trying to put myself out.
All right, we'll fire Chris McFeely. And
Remember we were the Fantastic Four. What we can't do with the 5th.
Oh.
You know?
Okay.
It's just not natural.
Worked for them. I'm gonna have to fight the Annihilation wave or something and come back in a year.
Yeah.
Maybe
So
the only real surprise, if there's anything I think that we could say is maybe even remotely surprising on here, it's OMAC, purely because that was being written by Dan Didio, and maybe they've cancelled it to show that there won't be any bias in that regard. The thing about I think the 6 of these books is what you have to notice is that nobody's talking about them.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they are not on the radar at all. Zero.
Captain Atom would have been the only other one that I would maybe expected to see one of these subbed out for, if only because Hawk and Dove, people are talking about Hawk and Dove because of how bad it is. But as I say, don't worry, because Rob Liefeld is going to start...
I'm sorry, it's interesting because 2 of the books, Mr. Terrific and Static Shock, that new direction that they were going, they wanted a focus on more, black
minority
characters as a main character of the book, and they didn't sell.
Well,
I guess I'm assuming
they're sort of. I mean, it's not a direct analog, but you are getting that World's Finest. So you're replacing 2, minority characters with 1 female sort of led.
Well, we all know how much I love to dwell on the topic of minorities and quotas and things, but I attach no meaning to this. The only meaning I attach to this is the fact that DC made a good try with 2 characters who aren't a draw. Well, 1 character who, there's a justified reason behind trying to give him his own series, but it was proven to not be a draw, and 1 character who had no business having an ongoing series whatsoever. They made a try, it didn't work,
Yeah.
So anyway, as I say, don't worry about Hawk and Dove getting cancelled, because obviously whenever you see that book crashes and burns, the thing to do is move him as writer and artist onto a different book that's already walking the line.
It had nothing to do with the writer and an artist. It had everything to do with the characters, right? It's the characters.
Obviously, that's the problem. Yeah, because he's going to be writing and drawing Deathstroke, and he's taking over plotting Grifter and Hawkman as well. So,
all right. So
wow.
So those can all crash and burn now.
Wow, I feel sorry for the guy.
God.
I'm kind of surprised that
after 20 years, I have no sorry left in me for Rob Liefeld. Fair play to the Wildstorm books for hanging in there after the first wave of cancellations. But if that's not the death knell for Grifter, Voodoo's already wobbling as well, quite severely. So, but they seem to maybe have a plan in mind for those, and I think they maybe need to keep them around for a little while, but we'll just see where it goes.
Yeah, supposedly we're getting into that there is an event coming sort of thing, so I don't know what their plan is with all that, but
that's not even one of the biggest things that came out of DC this week. So we got to look at what is potentially their new logo. It hasn't been officially announced by anybody, but it's been trademarked. Tell me somebody else saw this.
I did not. I don't.
I haven't
This is
seen it
news
yet.
to me.
Sorry.
Yeah. Like I said, I've
Too
been
many
in bed for
research.
the majority of the week.
Yeah, you're
So-
excused, but these
Hey,
two guys.
I was reading comics. I was not surfing the internet looking at stuff. I was reading comics.
I don't read a lot of boards. I actually depend on you guys for all that. Oh, there it is. See.
I read
So,
comics, but I don't remember what I read this week.
I see that new logo. That's
Yes, it is like
weird.
a solid D being peeled back to reveal a C underneath it. It's black and white, so we haven't seen a proper color version of it yet, and it may not even be used on comics. It may be maybe something that would work better in animation at the front of films where you actually see the thing peel back, but it's very corporate.
yes.
So what's
Yes,
wrong with
it
like
is.
the current DC Comics logo? I mean, I think that looks fine on
No,
the
it
cover
seems
of my
like a-
Batgirl.
It seems like a very quick change. I mean, it's been like 7 years since they changed it. Infinite Crisis was when it changed the first time around, and prior to that, we'd had the DC Bullet since '79. So a comparatively quick turnaround. Not if this is changing. If they plan to use this on the comics, perhaps they want to create some kind of new logo to go with their new branding identity with the new 52, and in which case I think you're about 5 months late, guys.
Yeah.
But I know the current logo, the swoosh as it's called, referred. I know it received a lot of derision whenever it launched, but the thing about that logo actually means stuff to me, because as far as I'm concerned, that logo represents my DC, because I started reading DC properly and regularly with Infinite Crisis. So the bullet has no meaning to me. If anything, it symbolizes the DC I never wanted to read, where the swoosh is my DC. So, not that I'm opposed to the change for that reason or anything. I'm opposed to the change because the logo is very insurance company-esque.
So when is this supposed to start taking place?
Oh, we don't know anything about it. It hasn't been officially announced at all.
It's one of those deals when you put up a trademark like that, that's public information. So, we know it exists, but not,
Yeah. Well, that's all the DC stuff that's happening at the minute. But Marvel hasn't been laying down on the job either, because they've had their next big thing going on this week, telling us about Avengers versus X-Men and what have you. So we learned a couple of things this week. One of which is that they figured out what to do with Captain America and Bucky. Hurrah!
Did they cancel it?
No, it's turning into effectively Cullen Bunn, who's currently writing The Fearless, and has done a lot of other projects I couldn't name you because I am a heathen. He's coming on board, and it's turning into essentially Captain America team up, because it's going to become Captain America and Hawkeye. And then after that, I think it's probably going to Captain America and Black Widow or whatever else. It's short arcs that'll obviously be very tradable.
I kind of don't want a Captain America team-up book, though.
Well, it's part of the...
I get that in Avengers.
Well, it's basically Avengers team-up, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's part of Marvel's current remit to expand their major franchises. That's why we have Scarlet Spider with Spider-Man now and whatever. So this is how they expand the Avengers franchise. One more book again. And the book isn't going to be called the Captain America Team Up or whatever. It's actually going to just change its name with each new arc.
So Captain America and whoever, or
Captain America and whoever is going to be the name of the book.
It should just be Captain America and whoever, and they just leave
that
it.
That would be awesome.
Captain America and
Captain America.
So like we do our show, Fanboy Versus whatever. Yeah.
That would actually be a good idea. Then you could have the retail instead of, and you could have the retailers on the front with them. There you go.
So, anyway, I'm sorry.
That does make it the third Marvel team-up book that's out there now as well. And this is all a product of expanding
Stan Lee. I want Captain America. Stan.
So,
if this was Marvel 2-in-1, Volume 4 of which just came out in paperback this week, hooray!
So, do you think this is part of a new strategy, maybe on Marvel's part? Instead of doing one shots and minis and things, get your main character that sells and do them in team ups, and then
I don't have to guess. I know. I mean, that's what it is.
So
minis and one shots are totally off the board at the minute, and the order from on high is expanding the core franchises. That's
So we get
That's
Avenging
just
Spider-Man, we get Captain America, and
X-Men is the X-Men team up book.
oh, okay. So there you go.
Yeah. But speaking of team-ups and crossovers, that's something else that's happening. I believe it's in April. The Omega Effect, a crossover between Avenging Spider-Man, Punisher, and Daredevil, written by Greg Rucka and Mark Waid.
Woohoo!
Cool.
Sign
Wow.
up.
I
we'll
guess
be
I need
talking
to
about
buy that month.
Yeah. Don't know if it's 3 parts long. Don't know exactly what the art situation is on it yet. Presumably, it'll just be drawn by the regular art teams on the books, except for Avenging Spider-Man, because, God knows who'll be drawing that by that stage, because it's highly unlikely it's going to be Joe Mad.
Didn't they already drop Joe Mad? Isn't like somebody else doing like the next issue?
No,
or
well,
something?
not notionally. I mean, I think it's just somebody doing an issue, and then Mad is supposed to be back for the next arc or whatever, because he can't do it. He can't do it.
Yeah.
He can't meet the thing. The deadline.
There's no hope for him doing that.
I'm
No.
still waiting for the next issue of Battle Chasers. It's been how many years now?
10 or so. Yeah, I mean, but yeah, we don't need to pretend like he can, because he can't. It's not even mocking. He just can't. It's just a fact.
Yeah.
Let's see what else happened this week. The CW seemed determined to try and get something to happen with DC properties on television, because they've apparently ordered a Green Arrow pilot.
Yep.
Well,
I
that's-
actually saw this. It's one piece of news I got.
Is this like the Green Arrow? Is like a spinoff of Smallville, or like a whole new Green Arrow?
Whole new deal.
Oh.
Yeah, the story. I mean, listen, the story that I read is they're pitching a whole new deal and calling it Arrow.
Ooh.
So, I don't know. So yeah.
Arrow.
I'll
Is
put
that
that
going
down on
forward?
the list of stuff that'll never happen, along with Raven and
Yeah, Raven,
Raven.
Dead Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Booster
Sure.
seems a little more likely because that's sci-fi, but the CW does not seem. Arrow is of the ones, like, that's probably the one that's the most likely to happen, purely because they can trade off the Smallville recognition of the character.
Yeah, but doesn't that? I mean, don't you think that is an inherent roadblock as well? Because if they're going in a whole new direction with it and it has no connection with Smallville, I mean, don't you think that would?
Smallville had no real connection to anything else, Superman.
Well, I mean, that I'm not saying that either, but I'm just saying, if you have a built-in audience with, say, Smallville, and you're going to introduce a brand new Green Arrow.
That's why I was thinking. I was
course.
wondering if it was a spinoff, because they spent a lot of time with Green Arrow in the show there in the last 5 years.
It is the CW, though, and once they put something on, they'll usually leave it no matter what. So, it's a good, maybe an opportunity there. But, okay.
Let's see. Anything else?
I saw blips like yesterday and today that I don't know, whatever that Chronicle, the director Josh Trank, they're talking about some sort of Fantastic Four reboot for him, but I don't.
Yeah, I heard
know
about
how
that.
likely
Yeah.
that is.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, I think
They,
again,
there are so many properties that have been talked about coming out from Marvel in the form of films. I don't give anything credence until I see some dude in a suit.
It's almost like it's really like they're just throwing stuff out there and just seeing if they can get investors.
Well,
That's
then,
the
like
thing
I was
about-
telling you guys at the beginning of the show, we had some leaks on some test footage for Deadpool too.
But who knows?
I didn't see that. I'm
I haven't-
surprised. I don't think that'll happen at this stage. The Deadpool bubble popped.
Yeah, I
you know,
think it's
they-
kind of gone by this point.
Are they killing off Deadpool? I saw an ad for something. Is it like
This
dead?
is- Yeah,
Or
there's
something,
a
whatever it's
storyline
called.
coming up, starting with Deadpool 50. It's going to be called Dead, but no, he'll be back by the end of it. It's
Yeah.
this whole thing.
You can't kill Deadpool. The dude is no. It's just not gonna happen.
Anything else? But Walter Simonson's going to be drawing some Avengers.
Oh yeah.
Hey, that's cool. I'm down with
That's
that.
pretty good. He's be drawing presumably the Avengers versus X-Men tie-in issues. So hopefully Bendis will be able to break his streak and actually produce some interesting tie-in issues for this crossover event. But I'm not holding my breath. But they'll at least be nice to look at if Simonson's drawing them. Justice League number 5 is late as well.
Oh yes, let's end on that note. So,
first
Is
of the
there
new
trouble
52
at Jim Lee Land or something? Is that what it is?
Well, he had a baby. So.
yeah. Oh, okay, that's an excuse, I guess.
Yeah, something of an excuse. Yeah, first of the new 52 to ship late. The news is, it's a bit mean-spirited to point at it and go, oh, late, terrible, it's doomed. Really, isn't the news that it's taken 5 months for anything to ship late at all? Even
That's
1
pretty
week
good.
late?
Yeah.
It's only 1 week late, I mean, I think to me more it says, though, if Jim Lee's wife having a baby has made the book late 1 week thereafter, does that mean he was still drawing it? And if he was still drawing it, what does that mean for number 6?
So, like,
Ooh.
is 6 supposed to be the last issue that he's doing, and then
Yeah.
it's the new
Six
guy?
is the last.
Yeah, 6 is the last issue.
Well,
So.
oh yeah, that was another thing they announced, that Carlos Danda, who did the Arkham City miniseries, is going to be doing issue 8 of Justice League. Gene Haas doing number 7, Carlos Danda is doing number 8. So presumably this second arc, if it is even an arc, will feature like a couple of artists, and one would presume Lee will be back for the 13 to 18 arc, but we'll see. And
That's
that's
interesting.
what nice news, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. We probably don't have time to get into it this week. We may talk about it more next week. I'm kind of at this point where the new 52, where I'm just like, I don't see the point. But I don't know. I think we'll save that discussion.
Books you're reading are the ones that didn't have.
Is that it? Is that really it? I don't know.
No, because like the two that I get excited for each month, they actually are really good. So
Yeah. I mean, I'm reading Batgirl, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute. But
yeah.
But I don't know. We'll see. If maybe when the event happens, I'll feel better.
Maybe you should be reading, I don't know, Swamp Thing and Wonder Woman. I hear those books are pretty good. I'm just saying.
You'd be reading Animal Man.
I think the question to ask to any of those books is, did it require a reboot, or is it something that could have been done in the series? But we'll think about that. I don't want to get into it. We don't have a lot of time.
Well, they tried a reboot within Wonder Woman itself, and it didn't go out so well. I'm just saying.
Yeah, well.
You know?
True. Fair enough. Okay, let's get to this week's reviews. We got a lot of great stuff, I think, to talk about. Chris McFeely was not as excited as I was earlier, but that's okay.
Maybe it's just what I read this week.
So, that could be it.
Or maybe my concern for just talking about the same books over and over again.
That does happen a lot.
We got some different stuff.
We got some different stuff this week, admittedly, so that sounds good. All right, Chris Triplett,
Yes.
get us started, sir.
Man, I'd love to talk about something brand new, but I mean, I don't know what it would be, but like this book just continues to be awesome. So I just kind of want to keep talking about it because I want people to buy this book because I like it. And it's Wolverine and the X-Men, number 4, which we were out when 3 came out, and I read it. I basically got caught up on them today. I'm trying to get caught up on stuff over the last month. So I was reading Fantastic Four and FF and whatever, everything. But Wolverine and the X-Men number 4 just kind of grabbed me because it's nothing major happens in the book. It's not like a huge event or anything, but it's just more of the same fun. It's just like Wolverine trying to basically make a school for the X-Men again, for the younger mutants and everything, and just the chaos that happens with it. Just in the last issue, just to reference something real quick. The last storyline involved the new Hellfire Club attacking the new X-Men school, basically to make Wolverine look bad and just ruin everything. They were attacking the school with Krakoa, the island that walks like a man. And what happened was now, just in very, kooky style, Krakoa, turns out, he really didn't hate the X-Men. He was just being controlled by, and he's actually a mutant too, and he wants to join the school. So he's now a student. Yes, an island that walks like a man is now a student of, the Jean Grey School for Gifted Youngsters. And it's awesome because Wolverine talks about how now we basically we've got a school ground that can protect itself, which is just the ideas where they could go with that is potentially awesome. I mean, they even reference it in this issue where one of the students got like attacked by a whole bunch of like daisies or something, and he admits that maybe he spurred it because he took a pee on the daisies, and that probably caused the problem. But it's just like I said, just more just fun stuff. Like Wolverine's having to deal with like money. There's like a money issue. They've already spent all the money that they've got on the school, and they just have like a little conversation with all the people. The teachers at the school, and you've just got like just little things like Jean Grey talking about how you're getting sick and tired of Kid Gladiator. I hate that kid. You got to remind me that we can't
Kid Gladiator, brilliant.
Yeah.
She's like, you got to remind me that we can't lobotomize the children, right? I need you guys to occasionally remind me of that. And then you got like Beast talking about, he says like, I may have made my espresso machine a tad too advanced. Last night it became sentient and attempt to choke me with its cords. Either that or I could perhaps look into getting more than 3 hours sleep a week. And Kitty Pryde, she says, while I was busy throwing up this morning, I found a gray hair. The whole day I've been pretending it was an illusion and that we're secretly under attack by Mysterio. If you know what's good for you, you'll all play along as well. It's just like just these little crazy conversations. I mean, it like I said before, I hate to keep saying this, but it's true. I have to check and make sure Grant Morrison isn't writing it because it's like just the craziness of everything that happens in it. And it's just such a fun book. Like there's new students that join this issue. One student that comes in, his name is Genesis, and I have not read a lot of X-Men comics, so maybe this character has shown up before, but like he comes into the class.
He's come out of Uncanny X-Force.
Yeah, he shows up in the class, and as soon as he sits down, everybody just kind of like has to do a double take at him, and everybody notices how he looks. And I had to like kind of take a second look and say, well, "What are they saying?" And they're like, "Oh, look at his oh, okay." He basically looks like a kid Apocalypse. If you know Apocalypse, the villain of the X-Men, he basically looks like a young Apocalypse and everything. He comes in, he sits down. Oh, I'm Genesis. Hello, you can call me Evan. So basically they have a kid in their classroom that got to teach who looks like a young Apocalypse, and everybody's kind of terrified of him. Quentin Quire is sitting in the middle of the class. He's got a T-shirt that says, "Wake me when the humans are all dead." It's just a fun little book. It's just, I mean, I could go on and on about it. They bring in some of the older X-Men characters, like Angel shows up in this issue. And again, I haven't been reading X-Force, so I don't know what's going on with it. But apparently Angel, like one of the founding members of X-Men, lost all of his memories, and he actually thinks he is a real angel now. Like a real angel from heaven. And it's just weird stuff. And like Deathlock comes to the class. He's like he comes in, just kind of, talk to the class about, future and everything. And Deathlock's the robot guy. Like, he's like this, half robot, half dead person looking person, has the power where he can tell the future. And he just proceeds to tell all the kids their future.
He doesn't have the power to tell the future. He's from the future and knows a lot about history.
He's from the future, yeah. And he kind of
knows a lot about the past.
like, he
knows a lot about history.
He talks like a machine. He's basically machining. He talks in statistics. So he says, like, he's like talking to him about the future. And I think like Kitty Pryde was like hoping it would be like, a positive class, but it was like not positive at all. And he's like,
far-flung future of 1990 when he was originally introduced.
Well, he says that I'm manufactured by Roxxon in the year 2030. So I guess this new version is
well, they kind of need to.
Yeah. But he says, like, the future is like, the future is a violent and terrible place. Know that at least 43.897% of you will die before reaching adulthood. Like Kitty Pryde's trying to stop.
Thank you.
He's like telling everybody like like the probabilities. He gets to Quentin Quire and he says, "Quentin Quire, there's a 38.9% chance you were expelled within the year. 67.3% you'll first burn the entire school to the ground." He says, "Sounds about right to me." It's just fun little stuff. And then when he gets to Genesis, he doesn't say a word. He just looks at him, and then he walks out and says, "This concludes the lecture." And we get a little glimpse into the future, and we kind of see what Deathlock knows. And boy, it's a bad place. It's everything that you expect from like a Days of Future Past type of an X-Men story, but you get to see like the kids now as like X-Men, even like Quentin Quire in it, and he's a good guy. I mean, he's not like a jerk like he's been throughout the everything he's ever been in. But it's good. It's fun. It's God, buy this book. All of you should be buying this book. Everybody should.
I did get the first issue. I thought it was interesting, and I'm following the Jean Grey School on Twitter as well. So,
I didn't even know it was on Twitter.
Oh yeah, and it's kind of funny. Like every once in a while, they'll, it's like these areas are off limits, or something's not working, or lectures or whatever. But
yeah, it's I'm loving this book. This is the X-Men book that I've wanted forever. Like I don't want some junky, just serious. Oh, we're at war. We gotta fight for our lives. No, I just want the X-Men to like go to school, learn how to use their powers, and just fun happen. Just fun stuff. And this is what it is. I mean, they even like retconned it into like what's going on with the other books, because like Wolverine's over at school. He even mentions that by night I'm Wolverine. I'm on the X-Force. I'm new Avengers. Blah 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 blah. But during the day, I'm teaching English lit. It's just so much fun. I'm not gonna spoil the ending. The ending's like again just craziness.
Yeah, I was like, what the heck?
Yeah, I love Deathlock's comment there. Like his Kitty Pryde's like running in into the bathroom, and he says like, "There's a 99.9% chance that you're gonna need a medical attention immediately." It's just so good. I mean, like, buy this book for God's sakes. Buy it.
Yeah, it's fun, or at least follow them on Twitter.
No, buy the book.
Buy the book. Follow him on Twitter and buy the book. So, all right, awesome, very good. That will bring us to then Nicole, who's gonna have a fun time with this, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll have fun trying to get through this without hacking and coughing. We'll see. So I'm going to be reviewing number 5 of Batgirl. Because we all love Gail Simone. So, on the last issue of Batgirl, they were. Barbara was introduced to her long-lost mother. And so that comes into play with this issue. It kind of comes into play within a few pages. But she decides she needs to go clear her head. So she goes out and, Barbara has about as much luck as a used lottery ticket. So she runs into trouble as usual. And it's a family, a man and 3 of his sons, because crime runs in a family, I suppose. But they keep on, they announced 338, and then people that they're holding up are like, what are you talking about? And they're like, give us $3.38. Now, okay.
I need about $3.
Yes.
About $3.50.
Okay, like
I ain't really no $3.50.
If guys were attacking me and gonna hold me up, and all they wanted was $3.38, you damn know I'm gonna give it to them. I'm just take it.
It's just really confusing because he's like, I'm just gonna ask you this one time, give us $3. Wouldn't you be like, what?
Yeah, I don't think. Even if I had the $3.38, I'm kind of like, what?
Just take it.
Here's $4. Or what, are you going to punish me because I overcharged you or overpaid you? So Barbara does what she does best, and she tries to help out, the little folk. But she also gets interrupted. Well, I guess I should mention, this group of family does not seem all there. The father ends up killing his sons, and yeah, it gets messy. Let's just say that. And then you could come to find out there's a certain other person in the background, which her name is, let me see if I get this right, Gretel? Is that how you say it?
Yeah,
Gretel. Yeah.
I don't know anything about Gretel. I don't know if she's a new character.
I think it's new.
Or
I think
she
it's a brand new character, yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
want to know where Hansel is. I mean, there's got to be another one, right?
there you go.
Hansel. Hansel. Bugs Bunny.
Well, there's a good little cat fight here, and then of course she gets into this little mode too of like, what's going on here? So you're just trying to figure out who she's supposed to be saving, what's going on, and then it flashes back to what happened with her mother. again, there's a lot of crazy things going on with her mom. She doesn't know if she should trust her or not. There's also a little thing about Occupy Wall Street. Now, that seems to be very common in comic books right now, is the whole Occupy Wall Street.
That's infiltrated tons
I mean, you're gonna be seeing it. I mean, just in the handful of comics I got this week, I'd say the majority had something about Occupy Wall Street or to some effect. So, well, then we get into it. You see Bruce Wayne. He's involved with his driver being under this same kind of suspense. 338. 338 is all through here, and of course.
And one thing that's kind of interesting, if you're not reading Batman, is that this actually ties in with what's going on over in Batman. Because what they're protesting is that in Batman, Bruce is actually trying to renew large parts of Gotham. So
he's trying to rebuild it.
Right, and so, but in that process, he's going to be tearing a lot of stuff down. And what these people are protesting is a lot of like condemned buildings and things that are being torn down, or old buildings that are being torn down in order to do this. And so it seems like there may be some sort of connection between that and then this Gretel character. So it's kind of interesting because now they're kind of, hey, it's a larger world. I kind of feel like it's a larger world. Yay.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's because right now it's looking like Bruce Wayne is the bad guy. And because, well, anytime people get into these trances, Gretel's about. And for some reason, her hair color changes every time she shows. So,
my speculation is that there's more than one.
That's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking. So, but I don't want to give the end away. But there is a kind of a little shocker on that last page. I don't know how it ties in with Batman. But yeah, it's stuff like this that gets me interested, just because you're just like, okay, there's something deeper to this number, and I want to know what it is. So I will be still reading this just so I can find out what the hell this means. So through this whole issue, it gets you intrigued, like, what's going on with these people? Who is this Gretel? And what's this number about? So there's a lot of questions, very few answers, but it keeps you interested into the next issue. So,
it's kind of it is kind of interesting, especially the people that are in the trance, because they just sort of slide the 338 in, into the regular con.
They're talking 338, and then you're just like, okay, well, I had a cup of coffee 338, let's see whipped cream, it's
as
kind
though
of like
that's supposed. And what tips her off that something is going on is in the background there's a plaque on the building, and the address is 338 Green Lake Drive, and the 338 is actually like spray painted over with 338.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know if there's multiple Gretel. It seems like it's the same person, but
it might be.
I don't know the hair, but the hair color is definitely different for no.
Yeah. I think there was more than one of that guy.
Is this the first issue where we found out that in the new universe that Barbara still knows that Bruce is Batman? I can't remember if we got the first couple of issues.
It is, but I will say that there was a far more interesting element, which was that one of the things that we talked about is we're not real clear on whether or not Barbara has been Oracle.
Yeah.
And there's a line in here which makes me think that she wasn't, which is that when she's talking about, she figures out that Bruce is in trouble, that something's going to go down where he's, that he's going to be involved or whatever.
Yeah.
And she tries to call him, and she can't get him to answer his phone, and she says, I hadn't called his number in ages. You would think as Oracle, she would have,
Well, I don't know. She spent a year in a clinic somewhere.
Yeah, so it depends on, I guess, how you define ages and what.
I don't know. I mean, well, this last issue was my last issue of Batgirl. I just gave this one a quick flip through because I couldn't talk about the real issue that sprung up to me regarding history and everything last issue without blowing the end of it. But yeah, I can talk about it now, which is that Barbara's mum is in this. And I leafed through it, and I couldn't see any indication of clarification of who this woman is. Is this her biological mother?
It seems
Jim Gordon's brother's wife, or is it Jim Gordon's
I know, like
wife?
the craziness with like Jim Gordon and Barbara and all that, and I still don't understand it. I mean, I've been reading Batman comics for years.
Like
it seems to be
questions, and I want to know what these questions, these answers are. That's why I will continue.
It seems like the short. It seems like the short answer. It seems like the short answer is supposed to be that you don't know anything about all of that, and your assumption is that her biological mother left when she was a child, and this is her.
That's what
it's not an in-story mystery to be resolved. It's another of the creaking issues of Barbara's history that are bearing down on this book and obstructing somebody who likes to try and pay attention to his history from enjoying it.
Well, but that's where I get into, that question of where are we, where is this book at in that larger 52 world? Are we really wiping all of that clean and just saying,
See, that's why I have a question, because I need to start reading my Batman issues because I have all of them. I just haven't read them. But that's good to know that it ties in with this.
Mm-hmm.
I might have to go back and read them. So
I mean, it's not a huge, but it definitely makes me feel like, okay, this connects to the larger world.
I just want because Bruce Wayne is going to be playing a big part in this. Probably within the next couple issues.
Well, the next issue, I mean, it's
definitely the next issue.
He's supposed to be in the next issue, which, here again, we have yet another crossover character coming into Barbara's world.
Yeah.
And we're only 6 issues in, 5 issues in that Bruce shows up, and so. But
I'm fine with that. It's just that, like, I keep going back to the Nightwing issue. That one just felt out of place for some reason.
Yeah, if this can tie in a little bit better.
This doesn't really feel as much out of place. It's not like, hey, in the middle of a story, Batman came in and said, hey, how's it going, Batgirl?
Right.
Which is basically what that Nightwing
It's more like Bruce is involved, and so that
he's
sort
part of the case that she's investigating.
Ties in naturally 338. But
that's what I want to know what this 338 is about. That's what's getting to me.
And it makes me wonder.
My back, it's just like, okay, you got my attention now.
Well, and I hope it's not something too far out there, because I kind of like this idea. We're not reviewing it this week, but I kind of like this idea that maybe Batwoman will be more of like the supernatural, Bat book.
Well, like I said, I hope this whole 338. I hope it doesn't go through like 10 issues. I hope it's resolved the next couple.
No, I imagine it'll be another arc just like this one, but I really am hoping that this character, that there's like more of like a science-y real world answer to it, because like I said, I like that idea of making Batwoman the more supernatural book, and it seems like that's the direction that book is going in.
Well, if they could create a distinction for the two books, that'd be lovely. I'd appreciate more of a distinction between the characters. I still don't see what I've said it before. The book has not made any case for me for Barbara, and why she has to be Batgirl, and what really distinguishes her, makes her unique from all the other bat-dressed people that are going about right now.
And it does seem that the world is confused. The world is confusing. I mean, we know that there's a Batgirl in Leviathan. Leviathan is supposed to be taking place, because I've thumbed through Leviathan, we see Stephanie in that. Yeah.
Grant Morrison will not give anything resembling a shit. Grant Morrison will write the story that nobody needs to care, but only he needs to care. Nobody needs to, if you're going to pick up the new Batman Incorporated and you're going to go, how does this fit in with it? Shut up. No, shut your shit. It doesn't matter. Just read the final arc of Grant Morrison's Batman.
I'm kind of glad to know that it wasn't just my sickness that made me confused with this book a little bit. I got to know you guys have questions too.
No, but I mean, it's interesting. I mean, certainly, I don't think it's off to much of a different start than the Mirror arc was. I think it'll depend on how it pays off.
I enjoyed the Mirror story.
It was okay. It just kind of went long, and once it was figured out,
it was like a couple. Yeah, it was a couple issues too long, but
it was like once we figured it out, it was kind of like, okay, that's it.
That Nightwing issue just threw the balance of the whole thing out of whack.
It was really
the
unnecessary.
Nightwing issue really messed everything up, I think.
So, okay, cool.
Yep.
Excellent. All right. Well,
338.
338. Then it is.
I need about 350.
Okay, so I'm reading new stuff this week, which is exciting. So, Scarlet Spider came out. I managed. So nobody else read this, right?
I wanted to, but I didn't get the chance.
I decided to pick up a hardback trade instead.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine.
I need to know, JD, is he still in North Carolina? Because when we read point 1, For the
Oh, no,
small
no.
amount of time, I thought we had a superhero now in North Carolina. Is
Oh,
he
no.
still there?
No, he's not still in North Carolina. He's moved. He's heading south with rapid pace to. He's wanting to go to Mexico.
Yeah.
But he's laid over a bit. So, I would say the basic throughput of this story is like a thread. It's kind of like a thread. It's like how one thing links, and then you end up in this whole other place that you didn't really intend or expect. So Kane is, like I said, he's trying to make it to Houston. So the basic story. This is written, by the way, Christopher Yost, and he was doing X-Men before.
Yeah, he's done X-Men at some point. He does a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and then
Does he do like animated stuff? Is that
He's definitely one of the guys involved with a lot of their animated projects as well.
Yeah. So, and then pencils by Ryan Stegman. So the art in this is actually really interesting.
Yeah, Ryan Stegman did the She-Hulk miniseries we talked about on the show last year.
I knew that was familiar.
So it's nice to see him getting some more high-profile work.
Yeah, and
he's good.
This is good stuff.
Oh, so that was the She-Hulk series. That was the
She-Hulks. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
That was good art. Yeah. I like that.
This is good stuff. So he ends up. So you see him. At the beginning of this, he's like, there's some sort of deal going down. You don't know if it's drugs or whatever, but he definitely breaks it up, beats up some people, and then takes off with the cash. And you think when you're seeing this, you're thinking Spider-Man, so you're thinking he's, catching bad guys. No, he's catching money, because he needs money to get south. So it has nothing to do with that. And yet, as he's about to walk away, he hears something in one of the containers and opens it up, because this is like a shipping yard is where all this takes place, and opens it up, and it's just full of dead bodies. They were human traffickers that he ended up taking their money, and there's one girl in this deal that's alive. So runs off, takes her to the hospital, and that's it. He wants to be done. Webs his bags of money to a truck and starts heading south, and he's going to get out of town, and he just can't do it. So he turns back around and gets a hotel room, puts himself up, and this is really the first time that in everything, Kane. We saw him, revived as a part of Spider Island and cured with the anti-venom, pool, I guess it was. And, I think that was how that was done.
Yeah, he fell into it, didn't he?
Uh-huh. And, for the first, and there's a nice little recap. I mean, literally 2-page with beautiful art, a few panels recapping his life. So if you don't know anything about him,
how much detail does that go into?
How much detail? It opens up with how it just says how he was created in a lab, and then he was basically always dying and scarred as a part of that process and manipulated, and then tried to kill Peter, then died for Peter, then was resurrected by Jackal again, and then ended up helping out as a part of the Spider Island thing. So, basically...
Just wondering, Kane has a torturous backstory.
Oh, it's huge! But this
hence,
hit...
where he comes from. But the thing about... I took to thinking about it, and you can actually distill Kane down into a fairly solid, high concept, Formerly terminal clone of Peter Parker finds he has new lease on life.
And that's essentially, and that is essentially what this is, because, we see him at the beginning, and he's long hair and scruffy beard, and, he's kind of looking at himself in the mirror and taking this pause, and he realizes that, part of who he's been for his whole life, if you can call it that, is that he's been dying, and he's just been angry and mad and frustrated with that whole process. And for the first time in his life, he's not dying. He's alive. And so it's sort of like, he doesn't want to be here. Like, that's not his interest. It's not what he wants to do. He just wants to live. But yet, he has to figure out what it's like to live, because he's never done that. He's always been dying. He's either been dead or dying for most of his life. So we keep, every once in a while you'll see like the outlines, and you'll see images of him in like his old sort of costume, if you want to call it that. and you'll see images of like the red eyes. But one thing that doesn't happen in the entirety of this issue is he never puts on a costume. So,
does he have a costume?
yes.
I don't even know if he
he took
one.
that
He's
one.
still got the invisible costume
Yeah.
from Spider-Man.
And he's got some new powers too. He has organic web shooters, and he can see in the dark as well. He makes a mention of that. They don't really show it, but he does say that he can. So he ends up like he shaves off his beard, shaves his head to basically just a buzz cut.
Ken needs a beard.
No,
I think
no
he
beard.
does, yeah.
I know, but that's what they go to a completely different look, like a real close haircut. I mean, like a buzz cut, almost like military in style. And, he just like goes up on top of the building and jumps off and just starts web slinging through Houston, which is where he's at. And, just kind of trying to live. It's like, you kind of think about a character as like, what happens, and they've done this in films and stuff too, but what would happen, like, if you were dying and then all of a sudden you're not dying? How do you feel about, life and what you're going to do? But like I said, the throughput of this is how one little decision links to everything else. And as the police are going over this container of dead bodies and pulling them out, this really evil-looking dude shows up and apparently wants to kill them all. But we also, so connected to that, there's not connected to that, I guess, but as Kane is sort of swinging through the city, he sees this SUV sort of wildly driving down the road and about runs over an old woman. So to stop it, he jumps on top of the SUV and basically stomps on it right before it's going to hit this old woman, and then starts basically yelling at her for walking in the middle of the street and not paying attention. And as he's yelling at her, he notices that people are pointing and looking at something. And when you turn over, what it is when Kane jumped on the front of the car, it stopped immediately. And the driver went flying through the windshield. So now the driver is a bloody, shattered mess on the street. And I think it kind of gives him that perspective of like the consequences of your actions, and he tried to do something sort of heroic and then really screwed it up in the process and ended up hurting someone else as well.
It's a flip of the traditional Spider-Man setup. Spidey's origin is that he fails to act and somebody gets hurt or dies. And so Kane's origin is that he actually does act.
Yeah. And gets someone else hurt. Yeah. And then in the process of that, he also he goes out drinking to drown his sorrow. And he sees that there's some sort of, that there has been a fire and all the people that were in that container were destroyed by someone, and he doesn't know what. And he's deciding to move on, and he's packing up his bags, and in one of the bags he sees the spider suit and just basically zips it up and walks on. But this woman that's in the hospital that was inside the container is now being attacked by this bad dude or whatever. So no idea who he is. He doesn't look familiar to me. And Kane is just, I guess, going to try to leave town. But you definitely get the sense that this is a story of how someone who's, been regarded as a villain is, and doesn't really have that heroic nature. I mean, he doesn't have, it's different than like a Ben Reilly, like Scarlet Spider, where it's like he thought he was Peter for a while and he wasn't. He has all those memories. He has all those tendencies. Kane's not that. I mean, he doesn't really have a lot of that baggage, other than all the terrible things that he did, during his time.
Other
as
than
Kane.
all the killings.
Right.
Yeah.
And so he does have that approach because he talks about that early, where he's like, I want to take, he was trying to take the money from those guys, and he really wanted to kill him, and yet there was just a little nagging thing, don't kill him. You don't really have to do that. So, I don't know. I'm interested to see, in what direction this is going to go, because like I said, very cool thing, Scarlet Spider first issue, never put the costume on. And it sort of ends up like, it's like it's hanging there. It's like the costume is his conscience, and he's never really had to have a conscience before. So it's like he doesn't, it's like we're going to see how he's going to deal with that, How is he going to deal with having a conscience now, something that he's never had to even consider? It's always been, and but yet he has. I mean, he died for Peter. He put himself into Peter's place, and to let Peter live or whatever. So, so that's kind of interesting. Now, as a freebie at the end of this, as a denouement, at the end there is a more in-depth history of Kane. So if you really care,
okay.
So if you really care, then you can go in, and it's called the Scarlet Spider Saga, and it goes
one of those clip art things they put in to justify charging $4 for a $3 comic.
Yeah, because it's all clips from old comics. There's like
but
one panel.
Is it worth the extra $1 for it?
I mean, I think it is because
those things are usually pretty nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's got a lot of story. It's one of those things where it's like I would have had to dig through Wikipedia and piece stuff together to figure all of these little bits out, and yet they're put together with a lot of old art, so it's kind of nice to see some old images and see it all encapsulated into one piece. It goes through and explains some of the Ben Reilly stuff. It explains pieces of most of this actually is more dealing with Ben Reilly than it is with Kane.
They were all tied up with one another intrinsically.
Right. I mean, that was all one big mess.
Now, the one thing I want to know, which maybe we just don't have an answer for it yet because the first issue's out, is so do we feel like that Marvel's kind of gambling here by like, okay, you had all this awesome stuff in Spider Island, and they fixed all this crap that was the Clone Saga, and now they're putting out this Scarlet Spider book and saying, look, we can make Scarlet Spider good. We're gonna tempt fate. We know that Scarlet Spider is like the thing that killed Spider-Man at one point. But we're gonna put it out there and do it and show you we can do it and do it right. I mean, are you a little afraid of this?
I don't know. I think it's a good time to give it a try in the sense that Spider-Man is popular. This is not Spider-Man. It's not even. The problem with a lot of that Scarlet Spider and some of that time is that either both of those characters were interacting in the same place, or some of that stuff was taking place in the same comic, or then they had Scarlet Spider completely replace Spider-Man at one point. So it just.
And also, how long before Spider-Man guest stars? Because I have a feeling that's going to be sooner rather than
No, I would say that's probably further away than you'd think.
I would think it is further away because, again, he's in a whole different part of the country.
Like he gets to
that
Mexico.
Seems to be a very.
He gets to Mexico, and it just so happens that Peter Parker
it doesn't
some sort of a device for Horizon Labs located in their Mexico office.
But I will say that even throughout this issue, though, even though there's like that issue of how to be a hero and things, there's really not a lot of there's none of that Spider-Man baggage with Kane. Like I said, it's different than Ben Reilly. With Ben Reilly, you had a character that really thought he was Peter for a while.
Just Clone Saga baggage.
Right, and so he's more of dealing with I'm
the worst kind of baggage.
Yeah, it's like everything in my brain tells me I'm Peter Parker, but I'm not Peter Parker. So now I've got to go be not Peter Parker, even though I feel like I am. Whereas the only really thing that Kane and Peter have in common is DNA and their powers. Kane doesn't have that sense of I'm actually Peter Parker, or I had my life taken away. None of that exists. So really, he just happens to have that same power set as Peter. He has a completely different past, completely different perspective. And even though he's mentioned, he mentions Peter like, talking about web slinging and talking about swinging through the city and how that's enjoyable or whatever, there's none of that mention of feeling like the ghost of Peter is hanging over him and telling him what to do. I think the conscience part of it is more of an aspect of now that he's not dying, he's not pissed off at everybody for being alive. And so that those bits of humanity, whatever humanity, he had, can have now, are what's creeping in, and you can see the character develop in that direction. So I don't really see a need for Peter to cross over into this, and I don't think that's going to be the direction for the book either.
Does it look like a book that you think you'll keep getting?
You know what? I think I'll pick up issue 2 just to kind of see how it goes. I'm really overextended on my titles at this point.
Yeah.
But I really do.
I would have got Scarlet Spider #1 if it was on Comixology, but it's not. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah, I think Marvel's having some issues with fire
It's
and
just
comiXology
like
and stuff.
some of their bigger titles are usually out there. Like Wolverine and X-Men's probably out there, and Avengers books, Amazing Spidey. But like the stuff like Daredevil and that book and some other stuff, they're not putting them out there. I'm kind
Yeah.
of surprised Journey into Mystery makes it, but wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Journey's awesome. That's
So-
why.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
But-
definitely sounds like they've managed to. I mean, Scarlet Spider obviously exists because of the remit to expand the core franchises, but they definitely sound like they've gone about it. They've tried their hardest to do something that's like recognizably a Spider family book, but they've set it on the opposite side of the country, and they've done, it's basically like a 180 inversion of your typical Spider-Man story. Kane. I saw the cover, the tagline on the cover is about all of the power, none of the responsibility. It says on the cover.
yeah, it says
Yeah.
all the power, none of the responsibility. And and like I said, I think that is exactly where they're going with it. This is a character that doesn't.
But it's not none
Yeah.
of the responsibility in the sense that he is just doing whatever he wants. It's none of the responsibility in that he is actively not using his powers because because he's hurt somebody while using them.
Yeah,
He's proven he doesn't think he's any good at it.
yeah. All he wants to do is live at this point. He just wants to. All he talks about. A lot of what he talks about is just finding a place in Mexico and hiding out. But because he really. It's kind of funny is that.
You are in Mexico, you hide out as well.
He's still got this paranoia because he's like, doubling back and covering his tracks and everything and talking about the Avengers after him and he can't even contact Peter and whatever.
See, I do
Nobody's
remember-
looking for him is the thing. It's like,
Yeah.
Is
Is that a metaphor? It's like nobody cares about Kane. Is that a metaphor?
I don't know. I hope not. Yeah, I definitely for the book hope not. I hope that, I hope the deal. But there's a lot of good buzz around this and I think, I certainly like it. Like I said, I'll pick up at least the second issue to make a choice at that point. I hate to make a choice on a series unless it's just really bad off the first issue. But it all depends. It all comes down to that second issue and what it's going to do. So
Is this a $2.99 book? Is it going to be $2.99 at the regular
it
price?
is
Better be.
$3.99. Hopefully, it'll be $2.99.
Yeah,
next, but-
I wouldn't invest $3.99 in it, but maybe $2.99 I might get it.
Yeah, see, I would have got it for $2.99, but I didn't for that.
yeah. So
I'll just tell you if the.
next one
is that.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's $3.99, but
Fingers crossed. Here we go. Let's see. It is.
$2.99.
$2.99.
Excellent.
Oh, hang on. Well, no, hang on. Scarlet Spider number 2 is listed as $4, but Scarlet Spider number 3 is listed as $3.
Interesting. Okay.
Oh, interesting.
Well, I'll still invest in 2 and then see where we go. So.
See that,
Sure.
that Clone Saga backstory? It was too massive. They couldn't get in the first issues.
Right.
Maybe.
Second one.
Where does it end, JD? Where does the backstory stop?
That's a good question. It stops at the death of Ben Reilly. So
Holy God, there's a whole world of stuff to cover yet. That'll be why it is. Then there's the whole return and death and Grim Hunt and death and Spider
Well,
Island.
yeah,
thing
'cause
to
it-
cover yet.
because it ends with this part where after being beaten, Osborn blah 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 jumped in front of Goblin's glider, Ben died and then dissolved, and then years later, Kane, now reformed, would honor Ben's memory by becoming the new Scarlet Spider. So
Feels like there's some
Skip
more
so
to
hot.
choose.
Yeah.
So that like I said is more like the history of Scarlet Spider. I would not be surprised if they don't go more in depth with Kane and more modern stuff
I don't
at
know
the
how
end
you
of the
could.
next one. So
And how long is it?
how long? I don't know. I didn't do the page count on it, but
Right there.
but it's good. So there you go. All right, Christmas Feely, carry us on. Then.
Yeah, okay. Well, now talking about making a judgment on things, rather than just waffle on about the same old books that I love or whatever this week, I'm going to revisit something that we talked about the first issue of on the podcast a couple of months ago, going back to Ultimate X-Men, Ultimate Comics X-Men, the 6th issue of which just came out this week, wrapping up its first story arc, and it's decision time as far as I'm concerned, So the story arc thus far has involved William Stryker, not the military man, but the son who's the preacher. You see, they mixed the two films and original ideas together.
Mm.
You know, it's involved a lot of people sitting in rooms talking. Is what it's fucking involved.
It's Star Trek.
there's no metaphor for man being the greater evil here. So or energy beings.
Oh, it's Star Wars. I'm sorry, it's Episode 1. Okay.
Don't go there.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. So various things have been going on. Kitty Pryde and Iceman and Human Torch have met up with Wolverine's son. They've been chilling in the Morlock tunnels, trying to find some direction. Rogue has come to them, claiming to be a Dan Aykroyd style on a mission from God. Following her, they wind up going into battle with William Stryker, who is preaching hate and preaching the ability to cure mutants and killing those who refuse to submit to his cure. And simultaneously, Quicksilver, following on from the events we saw in Ultimate Fallout, is trying to sell Cerebro to the President of the United States so that he can use it to track down mutants and put them in these camps that all the mutants have been put in since mutancy was outlawed following the events of Ultimatum. And that is more or less when this issue picks up. Stryker has been killed by Kitty, just as the Nimrod Sentinels have been ordered. Have been released by the President, programmed with Cerebro to track down all the mutants. And the shocking conclusion to last issue is when it turned out that Stryker was a mutant himself, whose own mutancy had been concealed from him by his father and copious amounts of medication. And his mutant ability is the power to communicate with and control machines. So upon his death, he takes, I wouldn't so much say possesses, but he kind of possesses, because he doesn't seem to have his will about him. But his will winds up split amongst the Nimrods, who then... so this issue gives us a large battle against the Nimrods, while the President wrings his hand and Quicksilver gets out of there. And the fact that once the battle is over, a crazed mutant hater is now in control of... His body is dead. His mind is just in the Nimrods. Is now in possession of the information of the location of every mutant in North America. And in control of a fleet of robot killing machines. And funnily enough, the plot thread from Ultimate Hawkeye about the Eternal Celestials and Deviants and the people and the serum and the source and everything that was going on in the Southeast Asian Republic in the Ultimate Hawkeye miniseries is what happened in that was that Zorn, Ultimate Zorn, the two brothers, we know Zorn, the mutant Magneto imposter from Grant Morrison's X-Men run. That's the simplest way of describing it. Well, they've been created, transformed into, they're calling themselves Eternals and Celestials. They've split into I can't remember Zorn and Zorn. I can't remember which one is which. Give me a break. One with a Z, one with an X. They have raised two great floating cities above the ruins of the Southeast Asian Republic, and they're welcoming in mutants and all those who wish to become transformed and live in harmony in these floating cities. And it's essentially the twist is it's the ultimate version of the Celestials, Deviants, and Eternals. The Deviants are normal people. And the Celestials and the Eternals are the two cities where one is dedicated to, I forget what it is, pursuits of the mind, and one pursuits of the body or whatever, the spiritual and spiritual and intellectual pursuits or whatever. You know what I mean? So that's what's going on. And the X-Men are like, well, maybe we should go. And it ends on a surprise, look who's alive twist. I'm not going to spoil what it is. So that's what's going on in this issue, but it's decision time for me now with this issue. So I gotta tell you, this is my last one.
Done.
I'm disappointed with Ultimate X-Men.
Wow.
It's written by Nick Spencer, and I
was going to ask if he's still doing it. Yeah,
it is still Nick Spencer. It just hasn't been working for me. It has. I thought with the end of issue 5, I was like, oh, hold on a second here with the Nimrods and everything. Maybe we're going somewhere. But then it happens and it doesn't really get resolved. The book, it's hard. Whenever you're reading a thing and you're like, this could be great. It's got everything in it that could be great. But it just feels like for whatever reason, it just can't get itself out of second gear.
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's just stalled there. There are all these ideas that just aren't coming together. There's no the covers have been showing us the characters in their uniforms. It showed Wolverine's son in a Wolverine-esque costume. None of that has happened.
I hate that.
It's like back when we reviewed the first issue, we said that it seemed like the story was going to start in the second issue. And that's kind of been the sense you get with every subsequent issue you read. Okay, it'll start. It's going to start. It's going to start. But it just never makes it there. It follows on from the short scenes we saw in Ultimate Fallout as well of Rogue going to a church, to try and think that this is the end of days, And she's trying to find some absolution in going to church, And she spent this whole arc claiming to be on a mission from God. And it seems like she's been working for Stryker. In the end, it turns out that she's not. Spoilers, whatever. It turns out she's not been working for Stryker. It's part of a plan in order to get her close enough to him. He says that if she brings him the X-Men, he will cure her. But in reality, so that's why she brings them into the Times Square for the big fight in this issue. In reality, what she's trying to do is get him close enough to her so that she can steal his powers. And it turns out that this is all at the behest of the surprise return at the end. I won't tell you who it is. So I'm like, what was the point of the God thing? I never really thought that she had switched sides, and she's still, whenever anybody said, "Who told you this?" she said, "God." And now we know it wasn't God. We know she's not crazy. She's only been in it for about 3 of the 6 issues, So it's like first issue, she's in it. It's like, oh, God did it. Second issue, she's in it. We gotta go fight. First issue, God did it. Second time, maybe she's a traitor. Third issue, no, he didn't, and no, she's not.
Great.
Interesting.
But except not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
disappointing. I wish it was a better draw. Because like Nick Spencer, I kind of wanted to get this book, but I was holding off. I was like, I'm getting Wolverine and X-Men. I'm getting Uncanny. Do I really need Ultimate X-Men? I don't care anything about the Ultimate Universe except for Miles Morales. Miles Morales is awesome, but the rest of it, I don't care.
Well, the new Ultimate Universe has a lot of good creators on it. I've enjoyed Hickman's Ultimates, and what I said about Ultimate Hawkeye was that it was a story that anybody could have starred in. It's a story that happened. It wasn't a story about Hawkeye. It was a story that happened around Hawkeye. But it was still an entertaining miniseries with some very interesting concepts at play in it. It would have been far more interesting if because in this it's just Rogue is just lying. She's just not telling them who's actually sent her and who is actually given her this mission. She's just lying. It would have been far more interesting if she actually did believe that she was doing this all on behalf of God. Well, I suppose thinking about it, without blowing the identity of the return, it's possible, I suppose, it's possible she could believe that that's what's happening. But, no, the way the scene is set, it makes
Is it something that needs another issue to explain? Is it like something where like it's left unresolved and like
not
next
really.
issue it's Rogue?
The way the scene is set, there's no sense. It's all deception, and it's like I know who this is before I turn the page. Who's supposed to be back? There's room within the story to twist it so that she actually does believe what she's saying, but unfortunately, I simply don't believe that's the way the story is going. And as the end of the first arc, it's still not even really over. There's a pretty cool scene where Kitty phases an entire crowd of people to save them from the Nimrod's barrage from above. But then they stand must have been 25% of every preceding issue, and in at least one case, it must have been more than 25%. It must have been nearly half. Was the President and Quicksilver and Valerie Cooper just standing around arguing the benefits of using Cerebro or not? Cripplingly dull. So. And it's just exactly Kitty standing around arguing with everyone else, and it's like Kitty was the one who actually accomplished stuff. Just listen to her. Yeah.
Hey, McFeely, do you like the X-Men? Do you like the characters?
I don't have a problem with the X-Men. I don't.
No. I'm just asking. You need to buy Wolverine in the X-Men. That's what I'm getting to.
Yeah. You could be on to something with that. I can't bring myself to just dive into that little secular corner of the Marvel universe, though. But I should really, because I know Wolverine and the X-Men is good, but Ultimate X-Men, it's got a good creative team on it, but Nick Spencer has had a couple of misfires at Marvel. You know, Cloak and Dagger was good. I enjoy Morning Glories as well. I know the first couple of issues of Iron Man 2.0 were good, but that's a book that petered out very quickly.
The Secret Avengers issues were pretty good. I love that.
I liked the concept he had behind them, which was that it was. I was talking about this with a customer the other day, and we decided that it wasn't so much that it was Secret Avengers, but Avengers Secrets. The whole gist of his few issues was that he explored aspects of the characters' lives that are not normally brought out in public. You know, he was having a bit of fun with it because he couldn't do anything because he was trapped doing Fear Itself tie-in issues. They were okay, but they were not anything to stand up and shout about, except for giant stone robot Lincoln. That's
what I was talking about.
There was no getting around how cool that was, and the idea behind the Black Widow issue with the exploration of what death means to superheroes was good too. But you know, these were they were far from the best I've ever read from him, and unfortunately Ultimate X-Men has got to go in the pile with them versus the Cloak and Dagger pile and Morning Glories pile. And I may stick my head back in to see what's going on. I mean, one issue, I think it was the end of the first issue, one issue showed us a little glimpse of a light flaring in a cave in Egypt, and we haven't seen that again since. You know, I'm interested. I thought maybe something apocalypse going on there, maybe. Ozymandias or something, but it hasn't come back since, and it's driven it out of me. It's the same problem with this 6-issue arc as a whole as was still the problem with the first issue, which was nothing in it has managed to be as shocking or attention-grabbing as that very first scene of the father killing his daughter because she was a mutant to save her. Rather than...
Oh, I remember that. That was really good.
Yeah. That was a really
that was good.
scene. But nothing else in that issue and nothing else that has followed it up, lived up to it. And that is why I think I am done with Ultimate X-Men. So that is a little something different for you from me
Nice.
this week. Journey into Mystery was good. It was the first part of a new story. You should go read that.
Definitely go read that, but we didn't review it. So,
But I'll spare you the usual.
Yeah.
Go read it. It's something new, and you won't hear about it here. You know, we're not gonna give it away. Go read it. Go get it. Go. All right, let's move on then quickly because we are
Yeah, we're running over.
running a little long, and we want to spend a decent, respectable amount of time on the next thing.
Yay!
Long anticipated, long waited for.
This is why I came on the show sick, so I can talk.
Because we have to talk about. So we are finally here. New launch, new world, not new world, but new launch, I guess, for Transformers. This is the first of the 2 new series. This is More Than Meets the Eye with foil. Yeah.
I love that cover. That's so cool looking.
Yeah.
Who got what cover?
I got want to make something of it cover.
I got the Drift cover. So
I got Ultra Magnus.
do we all get different covers? Do we all get?
Oh, no, I got the same one McFeely got.
Okay, so
I wanted that one, but they didn't
So-
have that one, so I got Ultra Magnus.
yep.
Oh.
So awesome.
Hey,
Okay.
Yeah, technically, I got all the covers because I bought the digital copy of it because I was like, I need to read this. And I didn't even wait until I got my copies, and I was like, maybe I won't get it because like my comic shop's kind of funny. Sometimes they put stuff in my box, and sometimes they don't. Like I thought when Transformers Ongoing ended, I thought, oh god, I didn't tell them I wanted More Than Meets the Eye and Robots in the Skies.
Yeah.
Am I gonna get them? Crap!
Yeah, I forgot.
College.
Yeah,
yeah.
because my comic book guy forgot to put this in my pull list, but that's okay. I forgive him. It was on the show.
So this is More Than Meets the Eye. James Roberts and Nick Roche. They were both on Wreckers, correct? Last End of the Wreckers.
Yes.
They were the.
I can't just say the cover feels really nice on this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
know
got a
it
strange,
feels so
slippery feel. to it.
thick and 90s, but no.
It's got
got
a
a foil.
good smell.
Smells
Smells good.
smells like victory.
Just feels nice to your skin. Just feel that.
So
You-
wait, this is what a good comic smells like.
Yeah.
Just a hint of donut.
Don't make me laugh.
You go get
Yeah.
those Transformers comics and smell them. Maybe they smell like rotten eggs or
something.
something. I don't know.
So on to the comic, as it were. Our story opens, and it carries on really from where we were, especially after Death of Optimus Prime, which we didn't talk about on this show. But Rodimus is wanting to get together a group of Autobots and Nails, I think, as well. I think he's taking Nails as well.
Well, anybody who wants to leave.
Anybody who wants to leave,
Yeah,
leave Cybertron to go find the Knights of Cybertron.
Decepticons. He's not even saying no. To
Yeah, I
Decepticons.
mean, he's taking
I
anybody.
think you might want to explain to others what nails really are.
No.
Yes.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. They're the...
Remember, we may have some non-Transformers
okay.
listeners.
Okay, I don't want to go too far in depth, but
Is it like
they're
non-affiliated?
non-affiliated,
what does it stand for or something?
indigenous
Here,
life
like,
forms.
Non-aligned indigenous life forms.
Right.
So
they are
Yeah.
they are the Cybertronians that left
They're
when the
not
war
about
started. And it's been in a couple of different fictions that when the war started, there were a lot of Cybertronians that just said, "Let's get the fuck out," and just left. Didn't care for the war, didn't care to get involved in all that, so they left. And they kind of have like a deserter almost. I mean, they sort of have that stigma of sort of being deserters. In some sense, the Autobots are like, look, we stayed and we fought and we got your world back, and they're like, yeah, you guys fought and nearly destroyed the damn place. So now we're back to like fix it and make it right. So there's a lot of like animosity goes back and forth. They actually had released the Decepticons, but wouldn't allow them to transform to sort of break up some fights and stuff in Death of Optimus Prime. It was interesting. You should read it. So Rodimus, Hot Rod is going to get this.
No, Rodimus.
It is Rodimus? Okay.
Yeah.
He's
You're
right.
doing great there, JD.
I'm sorry. I
It's
was
the
right
same
the
guy,
first
just
time.
with multiple personalities. We all know.
I was right the first time. I'm sorry.
He's got personality issues.
Yeah. So he's getting a group of Autobots together to go find the Knights of Cybertron, which is a concept that was introduced back in the Drift comics.
No, not really.
Well, it was before that. Was it before?
No, it was really just with the Roberts' Chaos Theory two-parter a couple months ago.
But it was in that
it's
Drift
playing
mini.
on ideas that were set up very vaguely with no future, as generic mysticism bullshit backstory in the Drift miniseries has been forged into something meaningful by James Roberts.
Okay, but
No
that's
small feat.
okay, but fair enough. But it still was talked about. At least it was mentioned in that, so not totally off. Anyway, would you like to take this over, Chris McFeel? I'm sorry. Am I...
Oh, no. Wouldn't dream of it.
Okay. So anyway, there's some great just like connecting lines in this. As Prowl's talking to Wheeljack, and he's like, "Nobody's gonna go." And then you turn the page, and it's like mass hysteria as everybody's like trying to load up into the ship, and everybody wants to go. I don't know how to talk. I don't want to talk
It's
about
very,
every
very
single...
hard to synopsize and go through lightly because
There's so much that happens in this.
Massively dense. I don't want to say it just to rag on him or whatever, but the Death of Optimus Prime as an example, the amount of stuff that happens in that one shot would have been a 6-issue miniseries under Mike Costa, and I'm not saying that as a joke. That is just a fact. And it's not that I'm knocking decompressed storytelling or whatever, but he didn't know how to decompress. He decompressed by having 4 large panels on every page and 1 speech bubble in every panel.
Yeah.
He didn't decompress, he just took an issue's worth of story and just put breaks in it.
I mean, this one part where like Ratchet and Bumblebee are talking about this nail and they're, talking about all this stuff, the 2 pages. I mean, that literally would have been half an issue for for Mike
But that is
Costa.
such a brilliant 2-page. I mean,
It is,
first of all,
and that's
you
what I'm
get
saying.
Everything.
That's
you
what I'm
need
saying.
to understand what this Metal Hawk went through. Can you imagine? He transformed himself to death.
Yeah.
That just
That is the sort of world building that we have just not got. That is the sort of basic insight into what you can do. It's funny because Roberts as a writer leans very towards overly humanized Transformers who say things like "what the hell" and rather humanistic terms like that. And we are his vision of past Cybertron, although it seemed to owe a fair bit to the Align continuity, is basically Cybertronic apartheid. There's an awful mirror of human politics at work there. And then you get things like, this is somewhere between a hunger strike and self-immolation as protest, transforming yourself to death as a concept. And then 2 panels later, rigor mortis.
Yes.
Yeah.
When the Transformer's dead body reflexively transforms into its preferred mode.
Yeah,
But just
that's great.
when they're talking about him transforming to death, I put myself in that situation like, oh my gosh, what the hell? What did this Autobot or this a nail went through to do that to themselves? Oh my gosh, that's
in protest. Yeah. So, but
I would be okay with him if he was actually. I think if there's a problem there, it's that I don't think any reader in their right mind should have any sympathy for these dicks who have just plopped themselves back on the planet and have had no consideration for the guys who fought, sweat, and bled oil to actually win the war and take the planet back for them.
Yeah.
Bunch of cocks.
And the first panel, but
Thanks a lot, but fuck off. I'll kill myself to make the point. Yeah, well, nice job, guy. Maybe you're better off, Dad.
Yeah.
But you gave us rigor mortis. So.
But my first panel where I'm like, oh yay, we're in a nice art world, we're in a good story world, was that the 3 panels after that between Ratchet and Bumblebee, where you have a silent panel, the dialogue, and then the panel below it where Ratchet's head is turned and is in all dark, and I'm like, oh yay.
Yeah,
we got good stuff going.
I love that shot of Bumblebee shaking his cane.
Oh, I know. It's great. So
I like the one on the page before where he's just standing with his cane. I love the whole cane accessory. I want that accessory.
But there's lots of little
bit weird, but Nick Roach has really made it work just for that scene alone.
Mm-hmm.
Artistically, just like in general, you talk about this scene, Transformers haven't talked like this. I don't think, like, basically in an IDW. I don't know if Transformers have ever talked like this in anything. This has a very, very unique voice. It's just ever so slightly off-kilter, a little quirky, very, very British.
Mm-hmm.
There's turns of phrase that crop up later. Let's have a go at Rewind, love a good quest. Things like that are very Britishy ways of talking. And then you've got this stylized artwork, which is, very divisive. The Division seems to be a small amount of people standing over here shouting obscenities about it, and then all the sensible people over here loving it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
I like it.
Fantastic. It's the ultimate expression, I think, this comic, of what Mike Costa was saying. We talked about Mike Costa's little thing a while ago about how a lot of readers of this are Transformers fans and not comics fans,
Mm-hmm.
And those are the people who have superheroes have been drawn in a million different styles across their histories, and Transformers can be too, but Dreamwave ruined a generation of people who will only accept Transformers looking one certain way. I've had a lot of discussions about this over the last couple of days. I tend to find, it's a generalization, but like Costa's generalizations, it's a broadly true one, is that I find British fans generally don't have a lot of trouble with variation in style in their Transformers comics. But that's because we all grew up with a million different styles every week, from Collins and Farmer's toy-based stuff to Sullivan and Senior's like hard lines and sharp angles, Wildman's people in boxes look, Dan Reed's amorphous blobs. We can accept stylization at the drop of a hat. And then Americans mainly just had you guys just basically had Jose Delbo and Don Perlin recreating Flora Deary's models for 6 years. Until Senior and Wildman came along to rattle a few cages at the end of the book's run,
Boxes, Transformers must be boxes.
Yeah, and then Dreamwave happened, and it beat a house style. And I always say, like, a generation of fan artists still haven't, and some artists working on the books officially, frankly, still haven't unlearned the worst lessons that Dreamwave taught. Like evolutionarily, if that's a word, this is, I think, the farthest thing from a Dreamwave comic that has ever happened.
Yeah.
Artistically and...
I love the look of the book. It's just so cool looking.
But just some individual panels where like when Prowl just like throws the table over.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like,
look at that. Not a motion line in sight.
nope.
But
none.
all the sense of weight and heft and things flying around and moving. And look, this is what look at the black. Look at the areas of black there that Nick Roach has put in. Real high contrast line art. Now, I had an issue with Death of Optimus Prime, which was the very, very high concept line work, high contrast artwork, coloring, where everybody was like really dark on one side, and then on every side they were lit, they were really bright, like everybody was standing under a black light constantly. Whereas, and it's the same colorist here, it's still Josh Burcham. He's produced this beautiful pastel coloring, and you know, you see what he's done that is what, like, you know, if I didn't love it already, there's no lens flares in anybody's eyes.
Yay!
The eyes aren't lit up like a wanky Photoshop effect, which has been the thing for forever. And he balls it up kind of bad. It's actually, even on the Roche cover, it's pretty bad, the cover of the issue. Where
well, you know what I liked most?
Like,
Well, the thing that I like most about this comic is that whatever character came on the page, I actually have emotion for. I actually got to know the character, even if it was only in a panel or two. It was just like, okay, I like this person.
The thing is, like, Roche,
I don't know much about like some of the characters personally. They just kind of show up, but they feel like characters. Where like in previous Transformers comics that I've read, it's like there's something that turns into a car. But this
right.
like just anybody in this book just exudes character. It's like jumping off the page now.
That's just was exactly the same.
Swerve was in 2 panels. Yeah, Swerve was in 2 panels, and I fell in love with the guy.
Well, it's exactly the same case with The Last Stand of the Wreckers, where characters who had literally never had any fiction before were suddenly fan favorites by the end of that miniseries, you know? And while some of there's some characters here who have basically done nothing before, and then there's some characters who are perfectly long-standing, and he's carrying on their great characterization. But, see, the issue is that this is the only issue Roach is drawing. Alex Milne is taking over the art. And, you know, I'll be the first one to admit that Alex Milne has come along leaps and bounds in the last year or so. But he draws robots, and Nick Roach draws characters.
Yeah, and that is something that is, defining. But on the other hand, something that, and we can get back on talking on is the story. Yeah. And there's a lot of elements and a lot of setup here. I mean, we do see a lot of montage. I mean, for one, we have like this whole like solo part that's going on with Tailgate. This comic does something that I love, which is where you see a lot of individual stories, and then you see them sort of come together, where you're like, how is this going to connect? And then by the end of it, it all interconnects. You have...
It's kind of like the movie Crash. That's what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like that. So you have like Tailgate, who's fallen down a well and was carrying stuff, and apparently was supposed to be on the... Huh?
What's that boy? Tailgate fell down the well?
Yeah. But he was supposed to be on the first arc, I guess, and got waylaid, and his chronometer's off, his legs are busted, so he's kind of developed a plan for
preliminary damage report. You're an idiot.
You're an idiot. I love that. And then so then we go straight from that to like there's a part earlier where Cyclonus is just freely running all over Cybertron and trying to decide what he's going to do, and his deal with Rodimus, which I don't know what that is, but I don't really care either.
Well, presumably Rodimus is going to allow him to come on the Ark, or not the Ark, the Lost Light or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we have Whirl, who has this whole deal where he's like, he has a shed full of like sweeps that he's been dismembering.
Corpses. I don't know if he's dismembered them. I think he's just strung up their corpses and he's been chatting to them. Whirl is someone who has never done anything except for appear in the background a few times in the UK comics with the Wreckers. And but his bio was always Whirl be crazy. And
this
James Roberts like set up this stuff and like really explored it. No, he set up the seeds for it in the Chaos Theory two-parter again, where we saw Whirl was the guard who beat up Megatron and convinced him that violence was the way. Whirl started the war, basically.
Yeah, basically.
And this is just building on what we started. Whirl he's not just somebody who's prone to violence. Like Whirl is effed in the head.
Yeah.
Like
he had trouble dealing with the fact that a load of non-combatants had come back to Cybertron and the war was over. So he strung up a load of dead bodies, talked to them until he felt he was a little bit straight, and now he's doused the thing with energon and he's about to burn it down to cover his tracks.
Which Cyclonus picked up what he thought was,
thought it was
Scourge.
Yeah.
And it turns out it's just the sweeps in there. Which Whirl then starts to beat the crap out of Cyclonus and chase him all over Cybertron. Of which the best part, I mean, there's some great dialogue that comes in that later, where Cyclonus is like,
he's like, awesome.
He's like, look, I'm sorry, I know. He's like, I know you think that like I care, but I really don't.
I just don't care. Just leave me alone.
Burn it if you want. I'm going this way.
Can we just stop fighting? Because I really do not care. I could not give two shits.
And he's like, you barged in. You saw things.
I know. It's like, I don't care. Do whatever. So it's but eventually that interconnects because in the midst of their fighting, Tailgate is trying to get to this energon, supply that he was carrying and blow up his food rations to make a signal to get out. And just as he gets to them, the explosion goes off and hits Whirl. And
I did not know where that little thing was going. Like, I assumed they were probably just going to stumble across his explosion. I did not expect him to still be alive 6 million years later.
Yeah.
And do you notice the great little trick he has, like on the page that's all Tailgate, how all the panels have rounded edges to show that they're flashbacks in the past, and then the three vertical panels.
Yeah, and then it goes into the square.
Last panel gets squared off corners to show that it's up to the present day.
I didn't notice.
He keeps passing out, and his chronometer doesn't work, so he doesn't know how much time has gone past. So when he comes up, they're like, "Am I late for the launch?" And they think he means for the lost light, so they're gonna drag him. So now we're putting. It's great. I mean, he's going to be on the Lost Light. Whirl is going as well because he's damaged.
And whoever thought, "Oh boy, Tailgate"? Was that a sentence you thought you'd ever speak? Oh boy, earlier on when we see Red Alert doing the security checks on everybody, we get Brainstorm coming on with his death following up stuff that Roberts did in his Bullets Prose story from the Last Stand of the Wreckers trade, or Swerve. When the thing about Chaos was, I don't remember if we talked about it, or we talked about Chaos a little, but you could tell what was Costa and what was Roberts in that story. And there was no doubt that little scene in the last part of Chaos where Swerve says funny things was Roberts. Mm-hmm. And you can see he was just getting ready for this, Red Alert's just looking at his clipboard and says, "Name Megatron, but you can call me Death." Swerve.
Oh, love it.
I felt Swerve right there. That one line, I'm like, okay. I've got to have a toy with you now just because of that.
So
Red Alert just insults him consistently here, and Swerve is just the happiest little bastard with his big jazz hands all splayed out. Doesn't care. No, I'm here for the quest. I love a good quest. I haven't been on a quest since the whole Luna 1 thing. Moon Quest. Stop saying quest.
Yeah. But
see, that's with this one page. There's so many times in this comic that I just laughed out loud, like, "Oh my god!"
I mean, just good
when
stuff.
When did you last do that?
Oh god!
Yeah, I mean, like, wow.
It's been all heavy, story.
Well, just laughed on purpose instead of ironically.
It's so tough that I've lived forever and that I'm a robot.
And it's not like there isn't heavy stuff at work in this.
No.
By buying golden discs from Swindle. What's on them?
Yeah,
Whirl keeping mutilated corpses that he's trying to burn. Prowl's utter and very fury at these deserters. And then the big twist whenever the Lost Light takes off. And boom! An explosion throws it to the far corner of the universe.
Those 5 panels right there.
Prowl do this?
Yeah, because that is kind of a question as well. But these 5 panels where he's like, he mentions that there's an incoming call from Bumblebee. Do you want to take it? And Rodham's like, no. And they just take off, and Bumblebee's like, "I thought you said you had a plan." Boom! Suddenly the lost light is hurled across the galaxy. And then I'm really excited because all of a sudden, I don't know if this is true or not. It's true for me, at least at this point. Because then it kind of came together for me because I'm like, oh my God, this is the Odyssey. That is what...
Okay.
This is going to be
Cool.
the Transformers version of the Odyssey because, again, what you have here is like Autobots start spewing out the side of the whole breach in the ship. And they're like, okay, Rod was like, all right, we'll land on the planet, we'll go find him, we'll go get him. And they land on the planet and he's like, well, maybe we can go look over there under that meteor shower. And he's like, Ultraman is like, Rodimus, that's the Autobots.
He's like, oh, this is not a good start.
And then there's this, but then the denouement here is just creepy, because it's like
the fantastically off-kilter undercurrent that runs through everything. There's quite a witty, I saw somebody call it Pixar-ish, which is not wrong, really. There's a very sharp wit over the top of it, and then there's this really creepy undercurrent that runs through a lot of it as well, ending, as you say, with this final thing here.
Where it's just like a series of like warnings about the future.
Yeah.
This is the Transformers, this is the James Roberts equivalent of those coming up this year on Aquaman pages that Jeff Johns does at the end of his first issues.
Yeah, this felt like, Wolverine the X-Men #1, where you got like the splash page of like, this is what's going to happen, and all these fantastic things that were going to happen. I mean, there are like a lot of parallels to that. With,
don't open the coffin.
Yeah,
don't let them take skids. Don't go to Delphi, and do not look in the basement. And for the sake of Cybertron itself, don't...
What?
Yes!
But, and that's where I say, the art is amazing. I love it, love it, love it. But there be some damn good story here, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
But each page is just filled with some goodness. There's not one page in here that I'm like, oh, this is horrible. Let's just go. So.
But it's the art that really, really complements the script because it's full of so many great little there's so much character coming off such a cast with so many members who don't have real faces, and they still puts across so much like expression and characterization into their bodies that complements the script so much that he's just going to be. And I'm not trying to knock him, but it's a fact. It's going to be utterly absent when Milne draws the series, and it's
it might be a little different since Milne's not going to be drawing movie Transformers. It might be a little different. So.
It depends, but
neither here nor there. Alex Milne is still, he as I say, he's come on leaps and bounds, but he is basically Nick is the alpha, Roche is the omega. They are at the opposite ends of the stylistic spectrum. Milne is still one of those guys I'm talking about who has not unlearned the worst lessons Dreamwave taught. Yeah. Everybody else is up and down the scale somewhere else in between. Nick is the one that, I applaud all the efforts IDW makes to introduce new stylistic twists. I said it, Transformers can look any way, the same way any superhero comic and any character can be done in any style, notionally, if you get somebody who could do it right. Transformers can too, but the mech nature of the whole thing has drilled into people's minds. Robots first, characters second. That's just part of it. And so design is, again, it's a Dreamwave lesson. A lot of people Transformers fans put design over characterization and actual storytelling ability. Don Figueroa was a terrible storyteller. He's a great mech designer, and he could make some really nice looking robots. His humans were terrible, and he was an awful storyteller. Milne is actually has elevated himself now where he's a little bit better than him, and he did a very good job illustrating Roberts's Chaos Theory two-parter. But Roberts and Roach, it's like they represent the otherness, the uniqueness. That's I think Robots in Disguise is going to have a hard time following this. But the thing about Robots in Disguise, it's got an American writer. It's going to have an American voice. It's got Andrew Griffith, who's great. He's a great artist. He did the foundation work for the for the Dark of the Moon prequel. And I'm really happy that he's on a real high-profile project like this, because it's going to make him now. It's going to be his real burst out into stardom, and people are going to start putting them in their top picks for artists. I'm sure of it. If you want to hear me talk more in depth about Robots in Disguise, I'll be reviewing every issue of that over on the Underbase podcast, so I'll stop talking about it now. But this is the book with the unique British voice. And Robots in Disguise is going to be the book where the narrow-minded people are going to be able to look at, not to diminish the quality I'm sure it will have, but they'll be able to look at it and go, oh, this is what Transformers should look and sound like. Whereas More Than Meets the Eye is the unusual, just slightly not quite standard. There's never been a Transformers comic that's looked or sounded like this. And I'm just worried about it. I don't want to get hung up on it, but I'm really just worried about what the addition of such a bog standard mech artist like Alex Milne on the book. He is the complete opposite end of the spectrum, and by that token the basic worst choice to pair up with Roberts for the future of this.
But we're going to have a good story because James does such a good job of the storyline, and I'm so glad to see him back. I know he's going to be continuing it. It's too bad about Nick, but
yeah,
I guess
it's not like he's been kicked off or anything. He's doing this by choice. He wants to go off and do some of his own original projects, and I can't blame him. Yeah. I was going to say something. What was I going to say? But stylistically, I was going to say IDW have been willing to experiment. After a while, after they learned to shake the worst lessons, they have experimented as well. It's just unfortunate that their two major experimentations give us Hearts of Darkness from an artist who couldn't draw robots to Chaos itself, which is where a guy who did some beautiful painterly effects on top of shockingly amateurish line work.
Yeah.
And storytelling.
Yeah.
With no sense of coherent design. IDW needs more Nick Roaches.
Yes.
And I don't mean that in the sense that they don't need more guys that look like Nick Roach. They need more guys who can do what he does, regardless of whatever style he does it in.
Because the thing is that the reason that it doesn't matter, or the mouths move, or all the stuff with this, is that he's able to manipulate size, dimension, and anatomy in order to tell you things about the character.
Yeah, they don't have to look like they have the proportions in order to fold themselves up into a car or whatever. Character.
You could just look at the panel with Chrome Dome and Rewind, where they're having the conversation about him, a worthless alt mode, and they have no mouths, but it's funny. Look at the way they're moving. You can see the character coming off of them.
Look at the. I think the design of Whirl is probably the best example of that, where he's just
he's had a crazy design anyway, but this is right up.
Now, how many people after reading this is everyone going to say, "I'm a Whirl fan now"?
Yeah.
Or a tailgate fan, or a rewind fan, or a swerve fan.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm a fan of Swerve now. Just within 2 panels, I'm like,
this guy? Like I said, if nothing else, I hope that my Odyssey theory holds out. I want to see.
Yeah, that's a good. I didn't even think about that, but that's what it seems like it is.
It does.
That's
it's
great.
like, this is going to be the Odyssey. We're just going to lose Autobots periodically as we go on this quest to try and find, home, or what. It's not home, it's another home, but, so. Anyway, I'm excited.
It's a massively, massively tough act for RID to follow. I have a lot of faith in the creative team on RID, but this is the best Transformers comic in a very long time, and possibly the best one put out by IDW.
How many of us are excited to actually start enjoying reading Transformers instead of say,
hell yeah.
It's about time.
A huge thing about this is that this is when IDW, this is the year, I've said this before, this is the year when IDW sat up and listened. This is the year where we got Robertson Roach on an ongoing. I don't know that many people were crying out for John Barber on G1, but I certainly was after I read the Movieverse prequels. Andrew Griffith gets his time to shine. Flint Dille back on Transformers doing an online exclusive comic. Furman and Wildman bringing back the Marvel Comics like people have been screaming for. For the first time, basically since they started, IDW have looked and said, that didn't work, that didn't work, that didn't work. Maybe it's time we actually started listening to the people that buy these comics and giving them what it is they keep asking for. But that means it is money where your fucking mouth is, kind people. It is
You've
put
got
up
to buy
or
this
shut
stuff.
up. It is
Yeah.
Well, hey,
no trade waiting. out there
Hey.
and buy it like you said you would, like you big internet tough guy said you would.
Hey,
do
now,
what you promised and do
Yep.
it.
if it says anything, I bought 2 copies of it, a digital and a physical copy. That's how bad I
Well, I'm
want to
talking
read
about.
it. You know,
Triplet wins the prize for fan of the week.
like it's so nice, I bought it twice.
Yeah.
You know,
It is
I
like
think that's the
show
Dead
them
Man comic.
that we wanted this, you gave it to us. Respond to the fact that this is as good as it actually is, that it lives
Oh.
up to the promise we believed it would have. Put up or shut up.
It's a beautiful
So-
comic, from cover to cover.
Awesome. All right, so
It's
go
not
buy it.
just a Transformers comic. It is a good.
It's a good,
Good
comic.
comic.
It's a good
Comic.
comic, kids.
that's the amazing thing.
Even if you're not a Transformers fan, I think you could easily pick this up and you be able to know who these characters are just within
Yeah.
the first few panels.
Absolutely.
So,
Cool.
yeah.
I mean, I've seen other more reputable podcasts than us who would never normally talk about these sorts of things reviewing this issue this month. This issue has the attention of people who wouldn't normally be looking at it. There's been a big push behind it, and fans really need to stand up and get behind it like they said they would.
Yep.
To prove that this is the success it should be and deserves to be, and that we said it would be.
Yes. Excellent. All right. So we have gone
read
terribly
it.
long. So we'll,
Yeah.
we're passionate
will-
about our Transformers.
I know. We
We had a
cover
good
some-
reason to go over. We
Yeah,
needed
it's all
to
that-
get that across.
This is our connection with, like I said, we're part of the TF Radio Network, so we can't escape our Transformers roots, and we definitely
Dude,
want to talk
if
about.
we weren't part of the TF Radio Network, I still would have wanted this to be my top
Oh, yeah.
comic.
It was good
Even
stuff.
if we were just doing comics, or just a comic podcast, nothing to do with TF, I still would have wanted to talk about that at the top.
Oh, sure.
Speaking
Yeah.
of the
Good
TF
podcast.
Radio Network, I will mention that if you do like video games, John DeLuna has done something entirely new with New Soundwave. So they're actually going to pre-recorded. They are still broadcasting the show live right after Radio Free Cybertron on Wednesdays. But they're going pre-recorded. They got some editing stuff. They have a Twitch channel, so you can watch live gaming from there as well. Watch John play. I think he's been playing Armada as of late. So
Awesome.
So yeah, some cool stuff. John and I have talked about teaming up and maybe playing some StarCraft and stuff over there. But just mention that. I know a lot of you like video games as well, so make sure you check out the new Soundwave, as it were.
I do really like the games of video.
Yes, I know you do. So
Verily.
Verily.
it is true. So,
Loki
awesome.
likes the games of video, the
Oh.
torrent of bits and the bad of I.
Yes. Great line from this week. Go pick up Journey
Yeah,
into Mystery. Do
Journey,
yourself a
so
favor
good.
with that. So, all right, that's it. That's our show for this week. Yeah, good stuff. Check out the stuff that we talk about because we
Not
talk about it
Ultimate
for a reason.
X-Men, though.
Other than that one, I'm sorry. Other than that, I met a new person in the shop this week, and I was talking to a priest, no less, and I was saying how we try to be positive on this show, and I that's one of the points I think that I'm proud of this show, that we typically try to talk about the good stuff and not hammer on the bad things too much. Even I think your review of X-Men was not a this is terrible and crap. It's like you try
There's
to be
no
objective
point in
about
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you were fair
exactly.
with it, I
Yeah.
think. I think there's nothing wrong with what you said.
If we talk about something that we don't necessarily like, we usually try to be fair. So that's something.
And it's usually from me.
Right, and then it's usually
Yeah.
Nicole, and then
Well,
she
no,
destroys
normally
it.
when it's from Nicole, we're not fair. We just tear it to bits.
We
Right.
just tear it to bits.
Literally tear it.
That's what Punisher.
apart. So
I took the high road this week.
Yeah.
The high road this week.
awesome. So anyway, we thank you so much for listening. Again, we record the show live at 4 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. GMT every Sunday. So tune in live at tfradio.net/live. We'd love for you to join us, join the chat. I just noticed that we did have some chat going on in Justin TV as well. So that's always nice to have as well. Join the live chat, talk about the show, and we try to interact as well. So again, thank you so much for joining us, and please tune in next time when it'll be Fanboy Versus.
This has been Fanboy Versus. Visit us at tfradio.net for show notes and to subscribe to the podcast. Follow us on Twitter at tfradio for news and updates. Like the podcast? Leave us feedback on iTunes. Copyright 2011 Radio Free Cybertron.